Some places in Japan exist only in whispers, never marked on any map, yet remembered by those who live in their shadow. They are not tourist attractions, nor destinations meant to be found. They are wounds in the land, sealed, forgotten, but never healed. And no matter how carefully history tries to erase them, something lingers, something waits. The ground remembers, and sometimes it calls to those willing to listen. That call is never without consequence. A village erased after a night of unimaginable bloodshed, its name removed from every official record, as if it had never existed. A tunnel in Kyoto where the air feels alive, thick with fog, as though it breathes and waits for the next traveler to pass. These are not rumors born from idle gossip. They are scars carved into the earth, places where tragedy has fused with reality, blurring the line between the living and the dead. In Tokyo, there is a room sealed for decades, untouched by time, yet heavy with an unnatural stillness. Outside, the city grows noisier each year, yet within those four walls, the air remains stagnant, and the silence feels alive. Neighbors swear they hear footsteps pacing inside, whispers too faint to fully understand. No one dares to stay there after dark. Some places keep their doors shut not to protect what's inside, but to protect the world outside from it. These are not tales crafted for entertainment, nor harmless pieces of folklore passed down to frighten children. They are warnings etched into memory, preserved through generations who know the danger of speaking their names aloud. These places do not forgive, and they never forget. They are patient, and they are persistent. And if you should ever find yourself standing where you shouldn't be, you may realize too late that you were never the one who found them. Each of these stories is rooted in a real location, bound to the tragedies that birthed them. Details may shift, like shadows moving in candlelight, but the essence remains unchanged, unyielding. They live in the soil, and the structures that refuse to crumble, in the silence between heartbeats. They wait for footsteps, for breath, for someone curious or foolish enough to step inside. And once that happens, leaving becomes less about finding the way out, and more about being allowed to leave. Tonight, you will hear 3 of Japan's most disturbing true horror story tales, of places erased from maps, but not from memory. Their echoes carry through the dark, searching for those willing to listen. Once you hear them, you may discover they do not stay here, they follow. So, listen closely, and if you have the courage, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. But be warned, once the echo finds you, it will never let go. In Aomori Prefecture, locals speak in hushed tones about a place no one should seek. Sugisawa Village is said to have vanished decades ago, erased from maps and official records. They claim a man once lost his mind and slaughtered every resident before the police shot him down. Soon after, the village disappeared from public knowledge, leaving behind only rumors. Yet, on moonless nights, some say you can still see faint lights flickering deep among the trees. The path to Sugisawa is never the same twice. Travelers report finding dirt roads that twist and loop unnaturally, pulling them deeper into unfamiliar woods. Compass needles spin without reason, and phone batteries die within minutes. Some claim to hear soft footsteps pacing behind them, though no one appears when they turn. It is as if the forest itself conspires to lead outsiders astray, deciding who is allowed to enter and, perhaps, who will never leave again. Those who have tried to document the journey often return empty-handed, their cameras corrupted, or their footage inexplicably erased. A few remember recording strange, faint voices whispering in a language they cannot identify. The sound is never loud, but it seeps into the mind, lingering long after they leave. Survivors speak of a feeling they cannot shake, like something followed them home, standing just outside their bedroom door, breathing softly, waiting for them to fall asleep. Local folklore warns that Sugisawa is not merely abandoned, is guarded. Villagers from nearby towns refuse to point the way, insisting that speaking its name too often will draw attention from whatever still resides there. Some elders tell of a pale woman seen among the ruins, standing perfectly still, watching travelers until they disappear behind the trees. She does not move, yet she is always closer when you glance back. No one has ever seen her leave. The massacre itself is shrouded in contradictions. Some versions say the killer was a local farmer driven mad by a disease that rotted the mind. Others claim he was possessed by a spirit of vengeance, sent to punish the village for a forgotten crime. Police records from that period exist, but the files are incomplete, names blacked out, and locations left blank. It is as if the official account was deliberately dismantled, piece by piece, until nothing remained. Even with no map and no signs, people still attempt to find Sugisawa. They arrive prepared with GPS devices, survival gear, and enough food for days, but their journeys always end the same way. They emerge disoriented, often from a completely different part of the forest than where they began. They speak of hours passing like minutes, or days disappearing entirely. Time, it seems, behaves differently in places where the living and the dead are unwilling to part. One man, a seasoned hiker, swore he reached the village. He described weathered wooden houses collapsing inward, their doors hanging open as if waiting. The ground was littered with rusted tools and overturned furniture. Yet the air was unnaturally still, without insects or birdsong. He claimed he felt eyes on him the entire time. When he turned to leave, the road behind him was gone. Only when he closed his eyes and walked forward did he escape. Stranger still, he claimed that days after returning home, the smell of damp earth began to follow him indoors. At night, he would hear faint knocks at his window, even on the top floor of his apartment building. Sometimes, he saw a shadow pass across the glass, shaped like a person standing just outside. Friends who visited him reported the same smell, the same sound, and one swore they saw a woman's reflection in the television screen. To this day, no one can confirm exactly where Sugisawa is or was. Aomori Prefecture is vast, its forests thick and unyielding. It would be easy to lose yourself there, even without the village's supposed interference. Yet those who claim to have stumbled close insist the forest feels different near its borders. The trees lean unnaturally, the light dims, and a quiet pressure builds in the air, as though you are crossing into a place that is not yours. Sugisawa Village may not appear on any map, but its legend remains. It is a place where tragedy bleeds into myth, and myth seeps back into reality. Perhaps the government erased it to protect the public, or perhaps it was erased to protect the village from the public. Either way, those who hear its name often find themselves thinking about it at night, and sometimes, thinking is all it takes for the village to find you. Nestled in the mountains of Kyoto, the Kiyotaki Tunnel appears harmless by day, its short stretch of road framed by dense trees. Yet locals warn against crossing it after dark. Built in 1927, the tunnel was carved by forced labor under brutal conditions, and many workers died during construction. Their bodies were never recovered. Travelers say the air inside feels thick, almost wet, and that every sound, even footsteps, seems to echo far longer than it should. Drivers often report seeing a woman in white standing at the tunnel's entrance. She appears to be hitchhiking, her head bowed, hair covering her face. Those who stop say she climbs into the back seat without speaking. Moments later, she vanishes entirely, leaving the car ice cold. Others claim she appears inside without the doors ever opening, her reflection visible in the rearview mirror, even when the back seat appears empty. Many refuse to drive there alone after dark. Strange malfunctions plague vehicles inside the tunnel. Engines stall without warning, headlights flicker, and radios emit faint static laced with whispers. Some drivers swear the traffic light at the entrance turns red for no reason, holding them in place far longer than normal. When they finally move forward, the tunnel seems longer than before, stretching unnaturally, as if time itself is bending. By the time they emerge, more time has passed than their watches can explain. The stories grow darker with the fog. On certain nights, mist drifts down from the surrounding forest, filling the tunnel until visibility shrinks to nothing. Drivers report seeing shapes moving in the haze, human forms, standing perfectly still in the road. They vanish the moment headlights pass through them, leaving only a faint smell of wet soil. Some say the mist is not natural, but the breath of those who died here, still waiting to be acknowledged. Accidents are common, but patterns emerge. Crashes often occur on the same nights each year, as though the tunnel demands a ritual sacrifice. Survivors speak of losing control for no reason, the steering wheel fighting against their grip. Others claim to have been distracted by figures walking alongside their car, keeping pace no matter how fast they drove. When police arrive, the witnesses are shaken, but no footprints are ever found along the roadside. One taxi driver, working late, took a fare who asked to be dropped off beyond the tunnel. Midway through, his passenger fell silent. When the driver glanced in the mirror, the back seat was empty. Yet the seatbelt was still buckled, and the air smelled faintly of flowers. Later, when he returned to the city, he saw her face reflected in his mirror, again though his car was locked and parked in an empty lot. He never worked nights again. Locals say the spirits here are restless, because their deaths were never honored. The tunnel's construction claimed dozens of lives, but no memorial stands in their name. Some believe the apparitions try to lure travelers out of their cars, leading them into the forest, never to be seen again. Others think the ghosts merely repeat their final moments forever, trapped in the stretch of road where their lives ended in pain and darkness. The government has repaired the road many times, yet the haunting persists. Workers report tools disappearing, sudden gusts of wind inside the tunnel, and voices calling their names. One man quit after hearing footsteps approach from behind, even though he was alone. He said the air turned colder, and a hand rested on his shoulder. When he spun around, there was nothing, only the echo of his own breathing, and the knowledge that something had touched him. Despite its reputation, the Kiyotaki Tunnel remains in use. Curious travelers seek it out, hoping to experience the paranormal. Some leave disappointed, claiming nothing happened. But others, those who linger too long, or stop their cars inside, return, with eyes wide and voices low. They speak of a pressure on their chest, of hearing someone whisper their name, of shadows that seem to watch them, and always, they end their story with the same words. It didn't feel human. The Kiyotaki Tunnel is more than a road, it is a wound in the landscape, a scar that refuses to heal. The spirits here are not content to fade into legend. They move, they watch, and sometimes they follow. To drive through it is to gamble with more than your safety, is to risk being remembered by something that will never let go. And in Kyoto, some echoes never fade. They wait for you to return. In the crowded heart of Shinjuku, Tokyo, there is an apartment no one dares to rent. Number 302 has stood empty for over 30 years. Despite the city's desperate demand for housing, its windows remain shut, curtains drawn, and the hallway outside feels colder than the rest of the building. Real estate agents avoid mentioning it, and neighbors speak only in whispers, claiming that those who live there never stay long enough to see another sunrise. Records show a string of unnatural deaths among former tenants, falls from balconies, sudden illnesses, unexplained suicides. Each occurred within months of moving in. One man was found sitting in a chair, eyes wide open, heart stopped without a mark on his body. The landlord tried to hide these events, but word spread quickly. No amount of renovation or discounted rent could keep someone inside for more than a few weeks before they left, pale and trembling. Those who have entered describe a heavy atmosphere that makes breathing difficult. The air smells faintly metallic, as if rust or blood has seeped into the walls. Even in the middle of summer, the temperature remains uncomfortably cold. Some visitors report seeing shadows pass across the room, despite the windows being sealed. Others claim the light bulbs flicker, not randomly, but in steady patterns, like a silent message trying to be read, if only the observer had the courage to stay. One former tenant, a young woman, fled after only 3 nights. She said she heard constant footsteps pacing above her at night, even though apartment 402 had been empty for years. On the last night, the sound stopped. Instead, She heard breathing long, slow, and deliberate coming from just behind her bedroom door. When she opened it, the hallway was empty, but the cold air rushing past her felt like something had been standing there moments before. An ex-real estate agent once spoke anonymously about his inspection of 302. He described dust on every surface except for a single, small chair placed in the center of the living room. The chair was turned toward the wall, and there were deep scratches on the floor beneath it, as though it had been dragged repeatedly. He left quickly, but later noticed faint fingerprints on his wrist cold to the touch test, by no one having touched him inside the apartment. Some believe apartment 302 was once the scene of a violent crime. Others say it was built on the site of an older structure, perhaps one tied to a forgotten tragedy. No official explanation has ever been given, and the building's management refuses to speak about it. A city where space is worth gold, the decision to leave a unit vacant for decades speaks louder than any ghost story. The silence surrounding it only deepens its shadow. Occasionally, maintenance workers are sent inside, usually during renovations of the building's other floors. Many refuse to return. One man claimed that while replacing the kitchen fixtures, he saw a figure standing in the doorway, tall, thin, and entirely black, like a shadow without a source. When he blinked, it was gone, but the tools in his hand had turned ice cold. He finished the job in silence and never accepted another assignment in that building again. Visitors often bring cameras, hoping to capture evidence of the haunting. Photographs taken inside often show distortions, streaks of light, warped angles, or faint outlines of figures. In one image, a woman's face appears pressed against the window, though the photographer swears the apartment was locked. The more the picture is studied, the more her expression seems to shift into something disturbingly familiar. The hallway outside 302 is equally unsettling. Lights here flicker more often, and footsteps echo too loudly, as though the space is larger than it appears. Neighbors speak of hearing soft knocks from inside the door late at night, followed by a faint, dragging sound. Some say that if you stand there long enough, you will hear your own name whispered from the other side. Few have tested this, and those who have refused to speak about it. Apartment 302 remains sealed, its key tucked away in some forgotten drawer. Perhaps the building's owners know what happened there and choose to protect others from it. Or perhaps they know nothing at all, yet feel the same dread as those who've stepped inside. In Shinjuku, people pass it daily without a second glance, unaware of the stories that cling to it. But the door waits, patient, for the day someone decides to turn the handle again. 3 places, 3 stories, and 1 truth. In Japan, some shadows never fade. Sugisawa Village hides in the forest, waiting for those curious enough to seek it. The Kiyotaki Tunnel breathes with the restless dead, drawing travelers into its fog. Apartment 302 stands silent in Tokyo, a door that refuses to open. Each holds its own echo, and each echo carries the weight of something that was never meant to be forgotten. Legends may change over time, but the presence within these places does not. They linger, watching, moving quietly through the spaces between moments. You may never visit these locations, but that does not mean they cannot reach you. Sometimes, hearing the story is enough to invite the echo closer. It slips into thought, into dreams, and into the quiet hours before dawn when you are most likely to hear it calling your name. These echoes do not ask for belief, nor do they need it. They exist whether you accept them or not. Perhaps they are memories. Perhaps they are something far older. All they require is your attention, and once given, it cannot be taken back. Listen carefully, for the echo may already be here. Subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from, if you dare. The next story might find you sooner than you think.